Shalom. Today's Daf Yomi is Shabbos Daf Kuf Nun, Shabbos 150. And in the previous Mishnah, 148b, the Mishnah had talked about those things that you're not allowed to do on Shabbos, like reading documents. And this is learned out from a verse from Isaiah chapter 58, which says, which means that you have to do things on Shabbos which are different from during the week. You're not supposed to do your regular business to speak about regular things, but you need to engage in the holiness of the day. And so therefore you're not allowed to read just like regular documents, like contracts, which is not doing basically the desires of Shabbos. You're not engaged in holy work. And so therefore we see from here that a person's words have to be the words of Shabbos and not just general words. In this context, the Mishnah talks about hiring workers on Shabbos. Yiskar Adam Polim b'Shabbos. A person is not allowed to hire workers on Shabbos and arrange a price from them and say, you work for me tomorrow for this price, because that is something that's prohibited on Shabbos because of this verse. And so too, a person can't tell his friend, go and hire me workers for after Shabbos. He's not allowed to do that on Shabbos itself. So in this context, the Gemara says, what's the reasoning? Since we learned in the Mishnah that you're not allowed to hire workers on Shabbos, and also you're not allowed to ask your friend to hire workers on Shabbos, the Gemara says, what's the reason why we have to say both things? Of course you're not allowed to ask your friend. So since we've already said that you're not allowed to do it, of course you can't ask your friend to do it. So what's the distinction? So says Rav Papa, meaning even if it's a chaver nachri, even if you want to ask your non-Jewish friend to hire somebody for after Shabbos. And so nevertheless, you're not allowed to do it because of this concept from Isaiah that you're not supposed to be talking about things on Shabbos that are not part of the holy day. So Maskiv Rav Ashi, so Rav Ashi asks the question, Amir Nachri Shvus, this is a rabbinic prohibition. The sages made a decree that you're not allowed to ask a non-Jew to do anything. And so therefore, we already learned that back on 121a. And so therefore, why does our Mishnah have to repeat it? So says Rav Ashi, we're even talking about a Chavero Yisrael, even your Jewish friend. So we see from here, says Rav Ashi, that you're not allowed to say to your friend, hire for me workers, but you're allowed to say to your friend, if somebody will come to me after Shabbos and hint to him, since it's not explicit, then it's going to be permitted. And this is the position of Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha. What does Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha say? A person is not allowed to say to his friend, does it seem to you like you're going to be standing with me tonight? But Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha says, if a person, Yeshua ben Karcha is of the position that a person is indeed allowed to hint such a matter to his friend. And says Rabbi Yochanan, the law is like Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha. And what's the reasoning for Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha that a person could say in this type of manner that does it seem like you're going to be standing with me tonight? Because it says, which means Dibur Asar, to actually explicitly state these words are prohibited, but here are mutar. But just to think it is not going to be prohibited, and you're allowed to hint to it in that manner. So Rami Ravacha Barafuna Rava, does really Rabbi Yochanan of the position that Dibur Asar here are mutar? Does Rabbi Yochanan really say that you're not allowed to say something, but you're allowed to think it? So we see from here that Rabbi Yochanan is drawing a distinction between thinking about something and saying something. But doesn't Rabbi Baruch Hana say in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that you're b'chol makom mutar lahara chutz mi beis that you're not allowed to think thoughts of Torah in the bathroom? So if thoughts are actually not speaking, why can't you think thoughts of Torah in the bathroom? So Gemara says, Shani Asam de Ba'inan V'Haya Machanecha Kodesh. That's different, because there, that when it comes to Torah, we need that everything needs to be done in holiness. And so therefore we see from here that that's why there's a specific prohibition even about thinking Torah in the bathroom. And so therefore one who's thinking Torah in the bathroom is not fulfilling this verse. But with other things we don't say there's extra requirement to be done in purity. And so therefore the Gemara says that's the basic answer of Rabbi Yochanan. So the Gemara then goes on and says, "V'dibur mi aser." The Gemara asks the question, and we see for Rabbi Yochanan says that speaking is prohibited, but thinking is permitted. So is speaking really prohibited on Shabbos? V'harav Chisda Rav Nuna Damri Travayo Cheshbonon Shel Mitzvah Mutar Cheshbon B'Shabbos. That if you need to do calculations about a mitzvah, like for example, how much you have to give to charity to support the poor, that you're allowed to do on Shabbos. And if speaking is prohibited, you should prohibit it even in a place where there's a mitzvah. You're allowed to calculate how much money to give to the poor on Shabbos. So the Amar, and a third teaching is Amar Rabbi Yaakov Bar Yidi Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mefachlin Pikuach Nefesh. You're allowed to see how much you need to spend on behalf of saving people's lives with Pikuach Rabim, and also how much you have to raise to go to the king as a tribute. All these things you're allowed to do on Shabbos. And also you're allowed to gather to discuss the communal needs on Shabbos and make those determinations. And so too says Rabbi Shimon Bar Nachmani Amar Rabbi Yochanan, you're allowed to go to these like theaters and circuses where the nations of the world gathered, and you're allowed to do this to discuss the communal matters. If there's a very important need. And so it's not just to the synagogues, but even to those places where the nations gather, you're allowed to do that. So the simple answer to these questions, it says the Gemara, is chafatzecha asurim b'chaftei shamayim mutarim. That if it's your own needs, it's prohibited, but if it's the needs of heaven, it's permitted. And this permission to go to the circuses and the theaters on Shabbos is obviously not going there just for entertainment purposes. So there's an overarching communal need, and you need to be in this place for something that's of relevance and pressing relevance to the whole community. Then a person is allowed to go under those circumstances on Shabbos.